Hey guys, today I want to talk to you, unfortunately, about a house from hell. And this is a horrible experience that happened to a family in Wyoming. I've been reading articles about it online, and I think it's a really I don't know what you necessarily could learn from it because I don't think there's anything that they could have done differently as the buyers who had to let the house go. But as an investor, this is a warning to other investors of doing your due diligence and having someone familiar in the market you're investing in and talking to neighbors. I always tell buyers, if you want to know the dirt on a property, talk to the neighbors because neighbors usually know everything. And if there's a problem, they're going to know the dirt and they're going to know the gossip. So without further ado, let's just get into this. Found this article on Casper or on Cowboy State Daily. So I live in Wyoming, but I don't live in Casper. I live and invest in Rock Springs, Wyoming. Cowboy State Daily posted an article about this property that is up for auction. The auction is going to start in about 15 hours from when I'm filming now. I'm on the auction website. And it's going to be auctioned on, I think it's Xome. It's Xome. It's a foreclosure auction website generally. So a lot of times if you're an investor, you're familiar, or if you're a realtor, you're familiar. This property is not listed by a realtor. It is currently in foreclosure, I would imagine. And the company who holds the debt on the property is probably who's auctioning it and selling it. So if you go over to Xome, the auction's going to start in 15 hours. The starting bid, not the reserve. The starting bid is $57,500. We don't know what the reserve is. And this is all public information. This is 2141 Thorndike Avenue in Casper, Wyoming. 82601 is the zip if you want to pull it, if you're pulling it before anything happens. It says on the listing on Xome, it says it is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and it's 1,150 square feet. Now, I actually have access to this MLS because even though I'm in a different town, I'm on the same MLS. So I printed the MLS data. I'm going to grab that real quick and see if it matches because a lot of these auction websites don't count the basement, the below grade square footage. Okay, so this property actually last sold to the owners that lived in it, that let it go because they really had to. It's 2,608 square feet. It was a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom when they bought it. They bought it for $285. It was built in 1980. It looked like it had been renovated. It looked like what you think of when you see a flip. White cabinets, updated laminate countertops. If it's an affordable flip, maybe a little bit fancier stuff if it's higher end. Grays, whites, new carpet. It looks like maybe somebody had updated this property. So they bought it in 2022 for $285. And they paid full price for this property. And when you read the article, it says they had their home inspections, they did all their due diligence, they went through, all the steps that you should take. And then I think what the article says is that their daughter started to have some health issues. And so they ended up determining there were some mold problems. And once you figure out you have mold, remediation is always an option. So they started the process of mold remediation. Well, once they started tearing out the walls, I'm not going to share these pictures. The person who bought the home, who was forced to let it go, she has very publicly been very outspoken trying to warn people about this house because she has said, I don't want somebody to buy it and think they're getting a good deal and they can renovate it. I don't want somebody to, she said it's a house from hell. It's been a house from hell for them. It has severely damaged their life and their opportunities and been a huge negative impact for them. And so she's trying to warn any potential buyers about this property. Because if you buy a property on these auction websites, you cannot even access the property. They are locked. So you can't go in the property. You cannot do inspections. You cannot see it. You literally are buying it as is, sight unseen, only from what you can see from the outside. So she is on a mission to warn any potential buyers about the problems with this house. And so there's a lot on her Facebook page. I'm hoping, I messaged her and asked if I could share her pictures because I found the pictures of when it was listed and they bought it. I can share that online. I found the pictures that the auction website is sharing, but her pictures of how bad the foundation is, those are only hers. And yes, they're on her Facebook, but I don't want to share them without her permission. And so they bought the property. They found out there were some mold issues. which sucks, but mold remediation is totally possible. They bring in a company, looks like they start tearing out drywall, and then they find significant foundation issues. I mean, the foundation, if you look at it, there's these huge cracks. It's heaving and bowing in. I mean, it's at a huge angle. And so it sounds like I'm looking at all the comments on the articles on Cowboy State Daily, and I'm looking at her comments with other people in the Facebook pages and on her page. And I think they had 3 contractors look at it, or engineers, and it's not salvageable. It is going to be so much more to deal with it. You can't repair the foundation for the cost. And I don't know the background story as far as what happened with the people they bought it from. The history on the article sounds like maybe the person that they bought it from has since passed. So I've done a little bit more research on the history of the owner and the contractor. So I don't know. I've seen 2 things. I don't know if the owner that owned it while it was renovated passed, because it sounds like maybe a prior owner has passed, but the contractor that did it, they were licensed, but they were licensed for small jobs, so more like maybe a handyman license, and they didn't pull any permits on the full renovation and has not been reachable for comment. So I don't know what the situation with the owner was, but a lot of the photos on the articles are showing drywall materials, trim, and they're stamped on the back, and they're dated like 2022. And the architect that looked at it said the damage is 10 to 15 years in the making. And so whoever did that finish work saw that damage and did the finish work over the damage. And I think that's one of the points of concern. But if you can't track down the person, or the person doesn't have any money, you can't squeeze blood out of a lemon, right? It doesn't do you any good. And so if they were trying to hide the issues, or, I mean, I don't know where the liability lies, if it was something that wasn't discovered before, if it was hidden, but they can't go back to that person. And so, and it's not visible. People think when they do a home inspection that your home inspector can find this stuff. If it's behind the walls, they can't see it either. They don't know it's there. And so this is just a horrible, tragic thing that happened to this family. And she posted on her page that eventually they just had to file bankruptcy, and this house is now being sold on an auction website because the damage was so much more expensive than the value of the property. So how do you address it? And insurance wouldn't help them because it was an existing hidden defect. And so they had nowhere to turn or no help. And so now it's on this auction website. And I can tell you, looking at this listing, again, you can go look at it. It's on xome.com. It's 2141 Thorndike. I would look at this as an investor, and the pictures they have, and they have one picture of the basement of an exposed part of the foundation, and they're not showing the rest of it. They're not showing the damage, and that I'm sure is very intentional. And so you would think, wow, $57,500 for the starting bid on this. I also would think, okay, this house was built in 1980. So it's not like you have those houses that are built in 1904 or 1920 where you have a stacked stone foundation and you know there might be something questionable in there. There might be something scary with an older foundation or a block foundation or a stacked stone foundation. I would think, seeing from the photo, I can see that it's a poured foundation and it was built in 1980. The problems I would expect to run into as an investor and as a contractor would not be what is going on with the foundation. The way this is bowing is very weird. And I would not ever anticipate in a 1980s house to see that. And it makes me think of a situation I ran into once with an out-of-state investor. So there was a property here in Rock Springs, and an out-of-state investor, a lot of people, it's too expensive to invest in New York, it's too expensive to invest in California, so they buy properties in these Midwestern towns where properties are affordable. And they call me on this property and looks great for the price, they think, because of the pictures that are there. And I said, let me just go walk to the property, because you're not supposed to access these, but sometimes they're so damaged they're not secured. You can get inside or walk around the outside. Well, I went and walked the property, and there was actually a point in the basement, the foundation, and this sounds crazy, but I've seen it more than once. The foundation is railroad ties, but they're stood up, like not like stacked, like horizontally, vertical railroad ties next to each other, and they had bowed and completely caved in and collapsed in the basement. And it's very visible. From going to the property and walking around the outside, I could see it. But the auction website did not post any pictures of that. Somebody just thought, wow, $40,000 house or whatever it was. And the investor kept asking me, what do you think is the ARV value? So the value after you renovate it. And I said, it's not. There's nothing. You have to tear this house down. There is no way that making this repair would make sense. And also, that house was in a flood zone, so there's other dynamics about what you're allowed to do and not do with the value and renovations and basements. And so that property, I just said, it's not even worth it. I wouldn't even buy this for land because you have to tear this down and build, and you're building in a flood zone, and in our area that impacts your values. But it was so evidently visible, and the auction website had so intentionally not taken pictures of that section. And a lot of states, you are required to do your own due diligence, so they're saying it's all here. We're not making any guarantees. You're not allowed to inspect. You're not allowed to access the property, and then you just have to make your bid and hope for the best. And what this is opening my mind up to as an investor and as a realtor who works with the public is I'm reading these comments on Facebook and all these people saying, how is this legal? This is so messed up for this auction website to be able to deny you your right to inspect. You know, going into it, you don't have that right. It's not like you're getting under contract and then you're going, oh, I want to inspect. That's how these auctions work. You buy them, they're quick. You don't have the right to inspect. They have it, it's all outlined, and that's how a lot of these auction websites are. And I think a lot of people think they're talking about how the city should have the responsibility to raise this, or there's so much to condemning a property. There's so much, someone even said the property taxes should be used to fix it. Property taxes are already assigned. Those are all set by, I'm guessing, state statute. And so there's all these ways that people think things should have to go. And that's just not the way that these transactions work and the world works. And so as an investor and as somebody that works with investors, I just want to warn investors about these auction websites. If you're buying in a town and it seems really good and you don't have someone boots on the ground to go see this. Now, to me, the pictures that she has on her Facebook page, they very much look like you're only going to see the damage from the inside. So even if you had somebody go walk around the exterior of this property and you didn't have access to the interior, I don't think you would know or have any idea how bad this foundation looked, because one picture she posted and she talked about pouring to make the foundation look better and then putting a window in it. I'm wondering if they resurfaced the outside of the foundation, the prior owner, and the inside is where the problem is, but then they just set the framing back, framed it, and finished the basement. The pictures it looks like a flipped house. And so when they bought it, they would have had no idea. Now it's all torn out, but you're not allowed to go in the house. And the auction website's not showing you pictures of the Boeing collapsing foundation. And so you would think, I'm buying a 1980s house with a concrete foundation, what could go wrong? And you'd have no way of knowing. You would only know if you talked to someone informed of the area or somebody who was maybe a neighbor or knew. But even walking the exterior, I don't think you would see the problems that you have on the interior. So I don't know what you do with this information. I don't know how this helps you moving forward except for being careful and maybe looking in windows. I mean, I'm not telling people to do this because this is illegal, so I would never advise you to. But I know of investors who, when these properties are abandoned, someone does not live in them, they break into them and they go walk through them before they put in bids. And again, I am not advising you to do that. That's illegal. But maybe you peek through the windows. I don't know what that looks like for you. But sometimes, gosh, this would really suck if you bought this house and you were in the same position these people were, because I would think, shoot, I could buy this house for 120, 140. I could put, 75 grand into it and I could sell it for, they bought it for 285 and the numbers would make sense knowing the market, and it just doesn't. It's just a real junk situation. It's a real junky situation, and that's why you got to be so careful, guys, especially with these auction websites where you don't have access and you don't have an inspection period and you don't have a period to withdraw after you do your due diligence. Just do your research and be careful. This is a really bad, again, 2141 Thorndike Avenue. It is currently for auction right now. And I tell you, the pictures they're showing are not showing the reality of how bad the situation is for this foundation. And I don't know if eventually they're going to have to tear it down and sell the lot. Every once in a while, very rarely, sometimes foreclosure companies will tear down and build. There was one in our town that they did that, but I don't see that hardly at all. They might just tear it down and sell the lot for a loss. I'm not sure. But anybody that knows in this town wouldn't buy it. But someone from out of state that sees it, it's going to look like a good deal. And again, the mold remediation, whatever. But when your foundation is kaputzed, there's not a lot you can do if it costs more to fix it than it costs you to build a whole new house.